Hi there, my name is Ben and welcome to Field Foley episode 24. Our guest today is Damjan Mravunac, whose name has never been pronounced correctly in English. With 15 years of experience working in the video game industry, he's the mastermind behind the music of Serious Sam and the TALOS Principal franchises. As a multi-instrumentalist, Damjan could easily play all parts in rock band games simultaneously if he was born as an octopus. So hello and welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you for this nice introduction. Yeah, too bad I'm not an octopus.
Yeah.
But I have to correct you, actually. It's 25 years of game development, not 15.
It's 25 years.
It's 25
damn.
years, yeah. It's a quarter,
25 years.
quarter of a century, man. So it's...
You seem so young. I'm sorry.
Thank you. It's just the first quarter, It's
Yeah.
more of them will come, I hope.
Oh, of course.
But yeah, I started back in 99, when the Serious Sam was my first job, basically, in gaming industry.
How did you initially came to like doing something for Serious Sam, especially? I mean, the first thing having Serious Sam is like it's a pretty big title.
I mean, I was as I always say, I wanted to be a rock star. Who didn't want that? So I had a band, and we wanted to record demo, so we can get signed and record an album. And you had to go to studios, and studios were expensive at the time. And so since I always had a computer, I started in 84, 85 with ZX Spectrum, then onto Amiga, and then I got my PC and the modem, and the internet and stuff like that. So I could easily research what's the latest trend in studio recording. And turned out there were manufacturers of audio cards, which were quite rare, back in 90s, but were popularized by likes of Creative Labs, and manufacturers that actually provided cheap audio cards to masses. But I was actually interested in finding something that could work on professional level, so I searched for the I think it was called Ensonic cards back at the time.
Okay.
It was a company that produced sampling machines, and synthesizers, stuff like that. And one of the first audio cards that I ever heard of, and what it could do was a Sonic card. And yeah, so I came with this idea of buying, since I already owned the PC, of buying a professional audio card and trying to record everything at home. Or I take this to our rehearsal space, and I record my band. And I was actually one of the pioneers here in Croatia in digital recording, which allowed me to later record my ideas and my songs at my home. Meanwhile, a group of guys here in Zagreb was doing games for the Amiga personal machine, which was very popular here in this part of Europe. And they made a game called Football Glory, and they sold it pretty well. The game made a big impact. It was one of the best Amiga games released in, I believe, 94. But since this was the sunset of the Amiga age, the guys decided to move on to PC, and of course they tackled the biggest game at the time, Doom, so they decided to make a game that's gonna beat Doom. And so our paths are being crossed in 99 because a friend of mine knew the lead programmer, and that group turned out to be the Crow Team,
Yeah,
and they were
makes sense.
doing their latest project called In the Flesh. And if you think In the Flesh was a stupid name, imagine my surprise when they told me, oh, no, the game was renamed to Serious Sam. It was like, what? Is there a more stupid name than Serious Sam? But turned out it was a visionary name, everybody.
Yeah, it was a good call.
Yeah, actually, this was a good call. It's now a household name. And so I sent them a few demos, and they liked it. And they said, "Can you change this? Can you change that?" And since I was not using a commercial studio where I had to book a few days in advance, go there, fix things quickly,
Mm-hmm.
charge by the hour, I could everything do at home at night because that was the time I loved to work at night. So I sent revisions the next day, which was like
Nice.
unheard of previously. So they said, "Okay, can you do this for the rest of the game?" And I said, "Yes, of course, but who is doing the sound effects?" And they told me, "Our CEO is doing the sound effects, but do you want to step in? There are going to be a lot of sound effects, that still need to be added and stuff like that." And I said, "Sure, I'm the expert on sound effects," and I didn't know a thing. So I
Oh yeah, big
sat and
balls.
I started investigating that part of game audio, learning how to design sound effects. And back in the day, I didn't have so many undos, or multi-tracks. I
Mm.
used SoundForge. And once you mix the sound, unless you save that specific, mixture mixdown, it's
Yeah,
gone. It's gone. You,
yeah.
you you screw something up, you turn up the gain, the sound is gone. You have to start all over. So it's much easier these days, with this
Sure.
non-destructive editing and stuff like that. But back 25 years ago, I had to commit. Is this good?
Yeah.
This is good. Save it. Let's go. Next sound in line, please. But yeah,
But
okay.
that's
So
also, I think
that's
it's also a good thing, right? Like having those necessities to commit to something also makes you like more focused, maybe because yeah, you really have this one chance to do something, and you could ruin your settings. So yeah.
I understand it. Yeah, I know a lot of guys who work best if they are given a limit. Here is your
Mm-hmm.
box. Work
Mm-hmm.
work in it. Don't go out of it. But I found that having so many options actually makes me more creative, than limiting
Oh, that's
myself to.
interesting.
Yeah, I'm just the opposite of all the other people that you interviewed so far. It's
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
just having more stuff gives me more ideas. Gives me
Mm.
just more options, more ideas. I can go 7 different directions. Sometimes I combine them, in the end. So
Yeah.
I'm not benefiting from limiting myself, to a short range of tools. I recently read an interview with Ludwig Göransson.
Mm.
I'm now predicting he's going to win an Oscar for Oppenheimer because it's such an amazing score. But he said in that interview that he's actually for every new score that he's doing, he's starting with a new sound palette, from the scratch.
Mm. Yeah.
He's persistently and on purpose limiting himself to a certain amount of tools and certain instruments, and he loves the playable instruments, not much the
Yeah.
VSTs, but something that tactile that he can put his hands on. And I'm thinking, and I'm total opposite. I do everything in the box. This
Yeah.
day, I tweak the synths and samplers and contact patches, as much as I can, and it's working for me. It's a different
Yeah.
kind of workflow, but it works for me. I'm happy.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever works. I mean, that's very interesting to hear you say that because it's usually, I don't think I have ever met someone who says, like, I have more options makes me more creative. Usually people are like then overwhelmed and don't know what to choose. And at some point, let's just like aimlessly wonder what to do. So that's very interesting. And yeah, while we were talking about like the beginnings in Serious Sam already, what was your inspiration like for the musical direction for Serious Sam? Was it just like, okay, that's the music I want to make, I'll put that in there, or was it more like you had this certain type of style of music that the developers wanted? And
Yeah, there was actually a certain soundtrack, that was the whole inspiration because we didn't release the Serious Sam like, hey, let's gonna make a game, let's release it. We were searching for a publisher,
hmm,
and we got a lot of no, 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 and even one no, thank you. But when we wanted our game to be signed with publishers, and it didn't happen until we released Tech Test, now
hmm,
famous demo, which was released in
yes,
the
yes,
summer of 2000, where we decided to showcase one level from the game and this frenetic gameplay, which is crazy over the top with so many enemies. And that
Yeah.
demo actually took off and put us in the spotlight, and that's how we got signed. But what's the story behind the music for the demo? So I was sending these ideas from my home, and a lot of them, it was even some piano music that at one point sounded like the Addams Family, with dum 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 dum, like deep piano
Yeah.
notes. It was so, uh, how do I say? It's more like horror thriller music. It was not fitting. And then we listened to the many soundtracks of that era
Mm-hmm.
and found that Peter Gabriel's Last Temptation of Christ, he explored some of the
Oh.
desert themes there, and since our game was set in Egypt, I cut some of the parts from that soundtrack, and decided to put it in the game as temp.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it worked wonderfully.
Mm.
These instruments like Armenian duduk, the ney flute, the darbuka drums that he uses, stuff like that. It's just fit the game perfectly. So I took out this soundtrack and I listened to it extensively, and I sort of got the vibe, that needs to
Mm.
be in the music to make players connected to this world. And I started experimenting. I had at the time it was sampler Sakai. I think it was S2000, something like that. So I had a
Mm.
bunch of CDs that I got when I bought it. The guy sold it, and those were all a really large collection of original CDs for this Sakai system. So I was able to utilize this sampler and then convert this to the WAV files. So I can use them on my PC. And there are some really, really great Arabic Egyptian instruments which I decided to use on the whole soundtrack. But we also discovered that what was giving the Serious Sam the vibe that it has was the drums, the frenetic drums, the ethnic
Mm-hmm.
drums.
Yeah.
So I decided to populate the complete soundtrack, with as much drums as I can. And it's just a lot of it is, I listened to it today and 25 years ago. Some melodies are very simplistic, and I'm just, oh my God, why did I compose that? But it still works,
Yeah.
it's still fun to listen, and people still write about it, and send me emails how it's one of the defining moments of their gaming childhoods, and so I think it worked well, because
Yeah.
the Serious Sam games were traditionally set in different regions of the world, different settings. So once you establish, hey, we have Egypt setting, we go with Eastern Eastern music, then for the rest of the game, hey, we are going to the South America,
Yeah.
Palenque, stuff like that. Then I explored some Mayan music, Aztec stuff like that. Listened to what were the traditional instruments. So it was quite easy from
Yeah.
that moment. Once you establish the franchise, you know exactly what to do. And with the modern Serious Sam games, which are set in near future, we are going with a blockbusterish sound,
Yeah.
still large drums, still electric guitars, and ethnic instruments, yeah, but everything now has an extra extra added layer of orchestra, to give it this bombastic Hans Zimmer feel.
Yeah. Yeah, that totally makes sense, and it's so fitting, especially the drums. Like, is so fitting for this frantic gameplay. I remember playing the demo with, like, I think I was 16 or 17 then, and was just so overwhelmed by how many enemies were on screen at the same time. And we used to play it as a cooperative game, and it almost felt like an alien movie, like waves of aliens coming to you, and you just mow them down, and the drums were banging, and it's like, yeah, it was a big hit in our group. So of course it was a big hit everywhere, but still, I think especially the music, just like you said, especially those drums that are were there all the time, kept your heart rate up and really benefited the game
I
in a
mean,
big way.
we have this music switching system, which you probably noticed.
Hmm.
When nothing much is going on, we are playing
Sure.
the exploration music,
Yeah.
which is which is more melodic. You know, the exploration music has this slow instrument, reed type of instrument, you know, and it also contains drums, but they're in much lesser scope, you know,
Yeah.
than the fight music, which is the other type of music. And when that one activates, everything goes to hell, you know. But we even have the third type, which is played on special events. This is called the war music. And here I
Oh
usually
yeah.
collaborate with Croatian metal bands, you know. So I had the band called Undercode, guest starring in Serious Sam games ever since 2002 and the Second Encounter, you know. So
Awesome.
we always make this new stuff together. The lead guitarist is my childhood friend. We grew up together, you know. We are in touch every few days, and so it's really no problem, you know. Give us new Sam game, and we're gonna make hell of a metal music for it.
Yeah, and you mentioned that they asked you like, do you want to do the sound design? You said, yeah, sure, I'm the sound expert. So, how did your start into sound design then go?
Well, my first thing was to buy a microphone, you know, because yeah, everybody's recording with this microphone. There is dead cat on it or something like that. So, not knowing much about shotgun microphones at the time, I bought Shure SM58, the vocal microphone, which was completely wrong for the purpose I had in my mind, you know. But
Yeah.
it was actually good because I could hook it up to my audio interface, which was in this. I mean, we rented a flat, you know. We had this flat with 4 rooms, you know, and I was in one room and there was my PC, and I was able to connect the microphone and scream into it, design various noises and stuff with my voice. And for that perfect purpose, it worked really well, you know. And the other thing was we started buying sound libraries, and there was not much at the time. It was Sound Ideas and Hollywood Edge. So we bought a few libraries, you know, from each, and so I was given these CDs, which were audio CDs. You know, that's how the
Yeah.
library arrived back in the day. So I had to rip them to the machine. Then I went and renamed every single wave file, you know, with and so I know what's instead of track 1, track 2, track 3 until track
Yeah.
99, I renamed every single track from, I don't know, we bought 50 CDs. So
Wow.
took me a few, I don't want to say days, but maybe 2 weeks, you know, to rename everything properly. And so that I'm able, when I do the search on my
Yeah.
PC, that I'm able to find sounds I need quickly. And then I was doing everything in SoundForge. SoundForge arrived with a lot of effect plugins inside, you know, which worked, and it was great. And yeah, and that's how I started designing sounds. There were no tutorials, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There were only a few. What was it? Magazines. I think Sound of Sound was coming out that I was
Mm.
able to buy once per month. There was a specialized store in Croatia that imported these magazines, and there was another one that appeared back in 2000, Computer Music it was called. I don't know if it's still coming out, but I learned quite a lot from that one. And that one came with a CD which had some free VSTs, you know, and plugins. And so I discovered,
Yeah.
oh, you can install additional plugins. And I don't know what to say. I'm mostly self-taught, you know. And I had there was no game sound designer position in Croatia when we were doing our games in early 2000s. So I had to pretty much invent the workflow, you know, how to design sounds, what sounds to combine. Uh, of course, later I watched so many videos and tutorials and stuff like that to see what I did wrong. Just to, yeah, to see if I did anything right. And turns out, yeah, I did a lot of things right. And today I can design sounds more confidently. But yeah, here comes the bummer. I hate recording them. Told you,
It's
Ben, I'm
perfect.
totally different from your all
Yeah.
other
Yeah,
guests.
it's
You know,
perfect.
I hate recording my own sounds. It's
Really.
yeah, I do it. I do it, but
Yeah.
it's not like I see. I notice that you enjoy, taking a portable
It,
recorder and
a
going out
lot.
in the field with your headphones, capturing the perfect sound. I absolutely hate it. I don't want to do it. I have all this rig. I have the shotgun. I have the dead cat, the
Yeah.
boom pole. I went out, recorded a few times, and it's just this is not for me. And I go back into my studio and I utilize a shit ton of effects and processing plugins, and I mangle all the available sounds to something not recognizable, and then I'm happy. This is my happy time.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's also what the podcast is, not just about people recording. It's about all things audio, and I mean, it's called Field and Foley because those are like my passions. But I had like voice actors on and singers, and I'm just a curious and interested person, and especially in the fields of audio. So it's very refreshing to have someone say like, I hate recording, and I'm very happy with having a lot of options. So yeah, having all this variety of people on is just amazing. So that's great.
I mean, I hate field recording. I have no
Yeah,
problems.
of
I
course.
have
Not
studios
yeah.
full of microphones, so all
Hmm.
the instruments that I know how to play, like
Yeah,
guitars, basses, keyboards, that's all played live when I work on a soundtrack. I rarely use, the guitar plugins, which like the native instruments have this
yeah,
guitarist. Yeah, it has a wide range of guitars recorded, with phrases which you can just press the
sure.
button and it plays instead of you. But since I know how to play the guitar, and I've been doing it for, Jesus Christ, it's gonna be. I'm calculating 33 years of me playing guitar, so I can play it pretty well, and I love to record it live. So, and
Yeah,
especially the acoustics. I love the sound of the acoustic guitar, and I love
same.
to
Yeah,
record it with microphone.
yeah.
It's
That's also something I very much enjoy. I can't play any instrument at all. I mean, maybe a drum, but I have a decent rhythm in me. But I especially love like people playing acoustic guitar and finding ways to recording it so it sounds as good as it possibly can and can transport that feeling, because you can never, of course, transport that exact feeling of being there, presence. But yeah, doing something with that is something that I also really enjoy.
But you don't play
Um,
keyboards, even.
I play nothing.
Really?
I play video games.
I can see Super Nintendo back.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
is this the
No, it's
working
an
one?
old one. It's an NES. It's an NES. Yeah, it's working. I still have on my bucket list to finish the original Zelda game. So
Uh-huh. Is that the
at
one
some
with the
points,
add-on
yeah.
floppy drive on top of it,
No,
or?
no, that's just the very old one. It's
Yeah, yeah.
the NES.
Yeah, I'm looking at it and it's very cool. Ah, this is
Yeah.
just CDs on top of it. Ah, the cartridges, yeah.
Yes,
Because I
the old
remember the
cartridges.
first time we played on SNES was the game called Rock and Roll Racing.
Oh, nice.
And the game had amazing soundtrack. It featured Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and classic rock songs. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love that system. It's good to see it's in good hands and still used. So,
Of course, it is. It's not just a prop.
yeah.
Yeah, and going back to the topic of recording, one thing I wanted to ask you is how did the sound for the kamikaze bomber in Serious Sam came to be? Because of course it's an iconic thing, like having a headless thing rush in your direction and just scream. Is that your voice, or is it something that you found somewhere? Or
Yeah, it's not my voice,
okay,
unfortunately, but it's royalty-free sound effect combined with the voice of the Crow Team's founder and CEO.
awesome.
He recorded himself yelling on the microphone, and then we blended this with, I think it's from Hollywood Edge Premiere sound effects. We blended it with
Nice.
the scream sound, and I was able to do the pitch shift, but through time, to correct all
Yeah.
the imbalances and the falling pitch that usually gets recorded when somebody is yelling. You give someone
Sure.
to yell for 5 seconds, and you'll notice the pitch is falling. So, but I
Yeah.
was able to keep it steady, using the pitch shifter. So we were able to create a crazy loop, and it's really an iconic sound.
It is.
People
It is.
people are sweating as soon as they hear this sound in the game. It's
Yeah, and it's just
crazy.
the first time I just laughed, and I it instantly for me set the mood and the type of humor of the game. So it was like an iconic moment having that
Did you ever
in
ask
the game.
yourself, how is Kamikaze screaming when it
Yeah, of
has no
course.
head?
It's like it's so stupid, no head.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's the best
maybe
thing ever,
yeah,
running
it's
with two
absolutely
bombs
the
in
best
hands
thing.
and no head. It's
Yeah, and it's screaming. It's just yeah, just perfect. Was that actually like your idea, or was it something the
no,
team
no,
came
no.
up with?
That was Roman's idea. That was the
Oh,
CEO's
awesome.
idea.
Yeah,
He and that was a marvelous idea. I must admit,
absolutely.
it's a wonder. So I tried recreating that specific sound
Mm,
for three sequels, and we just kept the original. It's so iconic, and I
yeah,
managed to recreate it for the
good.
Sirius M4 finally. With the
Mm,
I mean, I had 20 something years of sound design in 2020, so yeah, I was able to finally recreate that sound, and now it's off my bucket list, and it's in high definition, and it is going to be used for the next 5 Serious Sam games probably.
yeah, hopefully, yeah,
Hopefully, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And can you maybe share some other anecdotes or behind the scenes stories from the Serious Sam franchise games?
uh my memory is not like it used to be. It just filters out a lot of stuff, but
Sure.
still, that's actually the time, we were a bit naive, we were
Mm-hmm.
believing, hey, we are making an excellent game. This game is going to be a great success. And that actually happened. You know,
Yeah.
which is today, being near to 50 years old, it's, I don't know, I'm just skeptical. I'm a father and I have
Mm,
two crazy kids, and it's just being worried all the time, and deciding not to take some risks that 20 years ago I would have taken without thinking.
mm,
And so yeah, that was the state of mind 20 something years ago. We were taking risks, we didn't think much, oh, if this doesn't work, what's going to happen, it's just we're doing this. This is going to be the best game ever. It's going to we love it so much. People are going to love this, and seeing everything like this actually happening. And this was the first video game I worked on, and it became an instant hit.
mm.
So it brings a confidence boost. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, I made a hit. Oh, now our next game is going to be an even bigger hit. And it was. The second encounter even topped the
Yeah.
bloody first encounter. And so it was like, we can't go wrong. It's just. And then Serious M2 happened. This is the game where we said, okay, let's bring all our ideas into one pile. And the only problem is we didn't filter them out. It was just like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a great idea, and we just took everything that we could think of, and we made this. I don't know what would be in culinary terms. What would it be called? It's I have no idea. Something that you made out of all ingredients you have. So the
Yeah.
game was crazy, wacky. The development was also crazy. We had so much fun developing Serious Sam 2 because first two games were, we were tight on schedule. We had limited budget,
Mm-hmm.
so we just wanted to make the best what we can do in short amount of time. And
Yeah.
then with Serious Sam 2, we had plenty of time. We had more bigger budget, so we could hire more people. Which means more people will make games quicker, right? No,
Yeah.
it's
No,
completely
no, not
opposite.
at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not at all. But yeah, we thought it would work that way. Suddenly, you had 20 something people to manage instead of the original 10 that designed the
Mm.
first encounter. But yeah, it was more relaxed, and all these new people that arrived actually came with, they had great passion. They wanted to make video games, and they came with all sorts of crazy ideas. And we just put everything in, and to my personal taste, the game is fun. It's ahead of time. If it was released 10 years later, it would be a smash hit. It was still
Mm.
it was still selling good, but a lot of people were expecting third encounter, which is
Yeah.
like just the continuation of the first two games we released, and this we gave them something which was a bit of cartoony, going in the different direction. And the scope of Serious Sam 2, my God, it was supposed to be even bigger than it was when it was released. And trust me, it's big. It's a game with, I believe, 7 or 8 different settings, different bosses, 50 plus enemies. It's game time is like both first games combined plus
Yeah.
something more. So it was just a big, loud, brash, crazy game. But yeah, it was received as it was received, with some skepticism and some negativity. Also, there were fans that love it. But interesting thing is, since it was re-released on Steam, and
Yeah.
it's still gaining traction. It's selling all these years, and the comments are very positive, and people are finally resonating with that game, because it's fun game. It doesn't
Yeah.
take itself seriously, no pun intended, and it's just showing how crazy we were at that time, at that
Yeah.
time of our lives. So, and I have very fond memories. We were, when we worked long hours, but there was one grocery store, which was open 24/7. It's unlike in States, we had only one grocery store in capital of Zagreb. And so we sent someone at 3 a.m., and guys brings back with 5 large sausages, cheeses, blocks of it. And so we're eating in the middle of the night, and then we all fall asleep at 5 a.m. And then you wake up at 8 and you continue working, and you're making the best game you can.
Yeah.
I don't know, people are talking a lot, and it should be talked about, the crunch time, which is something that's affecting this industry, because there are a lot of developers that are kind of taking advantage of the passion that people have, when making games. So they're putting their hours, and we were putting our hours there because no one asked us to. It's just, oh, we are making
Yeah.
the game, we're hungry, let's go eat at 3 a.m., let's go back, let's do more. Crazy times, dude. I'm now drifting, but thinking
That's fine.
about it. But I loved it, you know.
Yeah. It
Now,
was just pure passion, right?
it was
I
pure
mean,
passion, yeah. Back then, it was pure passion. I mean, it's still passion now, At least
yeah.
we have a lot of people in the company that are here for 20 something years, and that tells you something. It's not
Yeah.
like we are a company where someone goes, stays a year or two, and then leaves to find job somewhere else. I mean, people here are really staying here. It's like we are all this big family, and yeah, we've known each other since the 90s. So I think the core people still share the same passion, same adrenaline for making games. And it reflects on the newcomers. We do have young and very prodigal developers, and we are proud of them. And some of them are now being given a bigger roles in the company.
Yeah.
And I think our passion somehow poured over on these people, and
That's good.
they are really, really now the driving force, because they are young, they are motivated, they have more energy, than us at this moment. So I'm actually looking forward to see, what Crotum is gonna do in the future. We've done a lot of serious Sam games. We have now released the Talos Principle and its sequel, Talos Principle 2. And we have so many great ideas, and crazy game designs that we want to try out. So yeah, at this moment, I don't know what the future brings for us, but I'm excited, you know.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be in. And
Yeah.
I'm also excited to see what you can come up with, because I've been like a fan of your games for a while now. And especially, yeah, let's go right into Talos Principle 2, because as I mentioned previously, I finished it in like a few weeks ago, and it was, for me, it was such a great game again, because whenever there is a sequel, I tend to have high hopes when I love the first game, and when it then delivers, it's just like, oh, it feels so good. It's like, oh, they didn't botch it up. It's still fun. It sounds good. It looks good. It plays good. So first of all, congratulations on a great game. It's an amazing puzzle game.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, and I wanted to specifically to ask you about like the music direction, the sound, and everything about it. So let's maybe start with the music direction. What was your like your influences for the music and your kind of plan for how to set this all up?
Okay, so the TALOS Principle 2, you played it, so there are not going to be any spoilers. And
Yep.
I'll try to keep the spoilers to the minimum for the
Mm-hmm.
listeners. But it takes place many years after the events in the first game. And it's not a secret that you are entering this society of humans which evolved and they are
Mm-hmm.
now put into these electronic android bodies. They are like these new humans, we can call them
Mm-hmm.
like that. And they
Yeah.
built a society which is limited in population, and they're like humans. Some of them want to keep it that way, some of them want to expand, discover different areas. And the future is actually, in the first game, the future was uncertain. You discover that you are playing the simulation, and if you go through the various terminals in the game, you can read a lot of letters, emails, notes, stuff that
Mm-hmm.
explains you what actually happened to the real humans. And it's kind of sad, it's not a prophecy. It is a
Yeah.
vision, one vision of the future. But the core idea is that humanity wants to live on, to continue the legacy. So, and in Talos Principle 2, you arrived into this world where humans are living again. They look different. They maybe walk different. They don't eat. They are charged, but they're still humans, and that's the idea behind the music. I wanted to show this evolution of music.
Mm.
So for the first game, since it was happening in simulation, and we had some different settings like Roman setting, medieval setting, Egyptian. We love Egypt, obviously. Uh, so I kept music very ethnic, and I didn't use drums almost at all. It was one of the rules, no drums, because I wanted just to lay down this atmospheric, this foundation for thinking, so you can roam there and you can think about solution to the puzzles you're encountering, and you are not followed by a crazy bongo drum banging soundtrack. Instead, you are followed by a serene, calm soundtrack, which gives you plenty of time to come to a solution. And but for the Talos 2, there was the evolution. We are now in this real life world. It's not a simulation anymore. And I don't know, I always connect the robots and androids to the synthesizers, So that was my first idea was, okay, I'm going to use a lot of synths this time,
Mm.
but to pay tribute to the Talos 1, because after all, this whole society evolved by solving the solutions from Talos 1, where they listened to the music from the Talos 1. I decided to keep some of the instruments, that I used, and those were the dulcimer, the acoustic guitar, the duduk, Armenian
Mm.
duduk.
Yeah.
So I decided to bring them back in the Talos 2, but combined with a lot of synthesizers. And this time there was no rule, no drums. So I used some rhythms, I played some of those. I used some loops, mangled them, and I don't know. There was an inspiration in certain soundtracks, of course, like the scores from Gravity and The Archive. These are soundtracks by Stephen Price. The guy is an amazing composer. There is, of course, the hints of Interstellar, by
Mm-hmm.
Hans, and some Daft Punk, from Tron movies. And it's a weird mixture, and of course Pink Floyd, Vangelis, and I don't know, Mike Oldfield probably, my the bands I really love. And so it's a mix of everything, you know. It's kind of a futuristic music which you would envision back in the 80s, you know.
Yeah. That makes total sense. And it also it feels like this, like the culmination of the whole of humanity's music into like these themes and things. It's like always when I was playing, I was hearing some things that reminded me, just like you said, like Pink Floyd or anything else, and it felt like this homage to humanity's lost. So yeah,
It
felt
is a
amazing.
homage. It's yeah,
Yeah.
you're completely right. So
Yeah.
these are the bands I grew up with, but these are the bands that my teammates here in Crow Team grew up with, you know, and we all
Mm.
listened to the Pink. We went to the Pink Floyd tribute concert here, whenever it comes to our city, you know.
Mm.
So we all love Floyd's, we all love Oldfield, you know. So
Yeah.
it's just something that, and all this, I call it positive futurism, you know. It's
Yeah.
the game is not
The hopeful.
bleak, it's
Yeah.
not dystopian,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's giving us a different message, you know. So it's giving us, actually, it says the future, there is hope in future, you know. Humanity will endure, and it's not bleak, it's not tragic, it's not going to be overrun by zombies, you know, something like that. But I kind of like it, you know. It's I've been watching all these movies in past decade, you know, and they're also dark and bleak, and the vision of the future is not happy, you know. It's very, very dark. So making a game that gives you some comfort, you know, and gives you some optimism, it was really, really great, you know. And I hope this can be heard in teams, you know. There are not many minor chords, you know. There
Yeah.
it's quite still quite relaxed, you know, and optimistic score. And when you listen to it, I don't think it paints the picture of some grave danger, you know, or
No,
something
no, not at
dark.
all.
It's
Yeah. It's very calm, and it's I think it especially suits like this puzzle game where you have this music in the background which doesn't get annoying even after 20 minutes trying to put your head through the wall to get finally to find the solution to a puzzle, which is very cool. And then you have this nice little resolve when you have this puzzle solved, like tidbit. So yeah, it fits rather well. And then you have, especially at the ending. Of course, we won't spoil anything, but there's a music track at the ending where you worked with Julie Elvin, which I actually also had at the show. So maybe can you tell us a bit about that, how that came to be, and yeah,
yeah.
what was your goal for this track, and how did you work together on that?
It was an amazing collaboration. It was actually so smooth, you know. It's incredibly smooth. We just bounced a
Mm.
few emails and ideas, but the first thing is that we met live. So we met in Dubrovnik
Mm.
every year here in Croatia, in the city of Dubrovnik. There is a developers conference, which is actually very famous. It's called Reboot Develop,
Mm-hmm.
and it happens in April. And there are like 100 panelists from all over the world, you know, coming here, and around 1,500 game developers.
Mm.
And so it happened that last year in April, both me and Julie were panelists, you know. And
Oh, awesome.
when I was looking to the schedule, I saw there were only 3 audio talks, you know, and it was ours too. So we met there, and I introduced myself, and turns out that she actually played the Talos Principles, and she loved the game. And so there was, of course, the idea, okay, let's make a song. And I wanted, you know, I wanted to make a proper song which will play once you finish the game, like the end credits proper song, like they did in
Yes.
the 80s, you know, with all
Yes,
the
exactly.
movies, you know. And it was like, it would be a perfect ending for the game of this
Hmm.
type. And so I asked Julie if she would be interested in singing. And she told me she would be honored, you know, to do the vocals. And it was going pretty fast, you know. I remember we had some deadlines, and we decided on the launch date. And so I had this song that I made for the game music, you know,
Mm.
which had this specific melody, which later turned into Survive. And if you listen to the song Survive with Julie and you listen to the complete soundtrack, you will notice that same phrase and theme from the chorus repeated in two other songs. I won't tell which ones are they, so you have to listen to the whole soundtrack. But yeah, this is an evolving theme that I decided to showcase in two different levels in the game. You know, just once it plays and the end, the player is familiar with the tune, but now can hear it in whole new light. You know,
Yeah.
with amazing vocals. And so I created this pilot track. You know, I recorded the music and mixed it, and then I sang it. And I'm not going ever to release this to anyone. You know, it's me singing this song because it's like, but it was good, you know, for pilot vocals,
Yeah.
and Julie was able to hear what I had in mind. And then because you know I haven't worked with her prior to that, so I didn't know her vocal range where it sits most comfortably. But I said, okay, you have an open hands here. You know, you can change anything you want to fit your voice, your style. And she didn't change much, you know, but the little changes she did were for the better. You know, now when I'm comparing
Awesome.
my first initial demo and the end result, it really improved, you know, on the melody of the voice, and it turned out really good. And it was, as I said, very smooth. You know, we just bounced emails back and forth with new iterations. I suggested some ideas. She tried them out. We picked on what works, what not. And
Yeah.
then I started mixing it and sent her, you know, revisions so she can check if she's satisfied. And we wrapped this up, I think, in within 2 weeks. You know, from
Awesome.
scratch and till finished song. And that was, I think, the day before we sent gold version. No, it was like the
Perfect in time.
Monday's gold version. On Sunday, I'm doing the final mix, sending it to Julie. Julie signs it off, and I put
Yeah.
it in the game. And the hour later, the build is built and it's being sent. And this is it. We're done. And of course, we did patches later, you know, but it was
Sure.
like in James Bond, 2 seconds before the bomb
Yeah.
exploded, we managed to finish the song. So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to working with Julie again, and I think she's amazingly talented artist, and she has such a beautiful voice, and it's also, you know, opened me for new collaborations, you know, in the future.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter if we find a game, if we will be doing a game that will need, you know, such a song with vocals. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I like the process and I like the end result, and I would lovely do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I immensely enjoyed it, and it was a great like way of rounding off the experience at the end. It's very very fitting.
thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, then going a bit into the sound design of the game. So you also did the sounds for Talos Principle too, or
Complete every last single
complete everything?
sound and every implementation of sound using voice platform and third-party tools and how they're going to be used. And I did all the audio mixing, and I post-processed all the voices which were recorded in the external third-party studio. And
Ooh,
it was,
respect.
yeah, the problem is the problem, and it's blessing and the curse. You know, I'm the single audio guy here in Crow Team.
Hmm.
So if I do my job badly, the finger is going to turn into my direction only. You know, it's, oh, there is the guy, because I do everything audio. So
Yeah.
well, even when we go to shows, you know, there is a PC where people are playing our build and something breaks up and there is no sound. And hey, call the audio guy. It's like, what? Why should I be able to fix your PC?
Yeah.
You know, and then I fixed it. And then
Yeah. Of
it's
course.
okay. Yeah, of course, yeah, because
That's how it
I'm
is.
the
Yeah.
audio guy. So yeah, I wear many hats here. You know, doing the audio, complete audio for the game. But yeah, it's good to be in control. You know, because
Yeah.
then I can emphasize some things, like if I want music to drive this part of the game, then I can
Mm-hmm.
put the filtering, you know, and duck some of the sound effects. I can create
Yeah.
various chains for prioritizing which sounds I want player to hear, you know, which sounds I think won't matter if something is happening, you know. So it's good to be in control, but it's also quite a job, you know.
Yeah,
That's why
makes
I'm
sense.
actually an in-house composer, you know, because not many companies will have an in-house guy for music and sound effects. They will probably work with freelancers, but having so much to do on a single project, you know, keeps me really busy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I mean it has also like the added benefit if you're doing the sound that you can fit the sounds to the music because especially with like puzzle games you have those chimes and you have those I don't know those sounds you hear all the time like pressing buttons or like and it should always play because you need that feedback for the player. But if it's something that like disturbs the sound or is like tuned to a wrong note, that could really like ruin the whole feeling of it, right?
I mean, we iterate on these specific sounds that you mentioned, switches,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and buttons and menu buttons.
Yeah.
I think I iterated on those like 10 times. You know, because I played the game and this is annoying. I need to
Yeah.
fix this. And then I go back, I fix it. Oh, much better. Then after 2 hours, it's still annoying. I need to fix it. You know, so then
Yeah.
and once I'm playing the game and I'm not noticing, everything is still, you know, it has perfect audio cue, but it's not obtrusive, you know, it's not making
Yes.
me nervous or agitated. Then I say, okay, this is good, this is good enough. And I'm not a
Yeah.
perfectionist, you know, I'm not chasing perfection here. I'm just trying to do the best I can in the amount of time I can. That's the best fit for the game.
Yeah.
I could probably go and chase some sound with a sound recorder on the field.
Yes. You could do
I
that.
could do that, yeah, and
Yeah,
spend
I would
there
urge you
too.
to try.
Yeah,
Or if not,
I
like if you
heard
need
there are
something
people,
specific, I
yeah.
can record it for you. It's not a problem.
Yeah, but heard there are crazy people that love to do
Yes.
this, you know, go on
Yeah.
2 days and
Yeah.
spend
It's
them.
very relaxing. It's very
Yeah, I can
relaxing.
imagine.
It's like a vacation sitting out there.
Yeah,
Uh,
but yeah, or I can you know do it here in iterating cycles, you know,
yeah.
back in my cozy little studio.
Yeah. I'm to be honest, I also enjoy that kind of process, and especially for the iteration and for the just like you mentioned, like this playing again and again and noticing if something sticks out and is like a sore thumb. That's something that's always the job of the sound designer to fix that. But that also means that if you do your job right, nobody notices your sounds most of the time. So
I
it's a bit of
agree.
a bit of a curse. It's so like, how was the sound? Yeah, I think it was good. So that's like the highest compliment you can get. If someone says something about the sound, it's usually negative. It's usually like, oh, this was annoying, this alarm or this whatever, this cue.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
if you don't have those very specific things that are audio related, then it's like, yeah, you're trying to hide.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, when I was reading the reviews uh, for all our games, you know, and
Hmm.
then my wife is reading the review and she said, they didn't mention anything about sound. And I said, yes,
Yes.
yes, which means it fits, you know. If it's
Yes, it
sticking, as you
does.
mentioned, like a sore thumb, somebody's going to write about it, you know. But if it's good, somebody's going to say, oh, it's good, you know. But if it works and it's there in the function of supporting the gameplay,
Hmm.
then most of the times people will say nothing, as
Absolutely.
it's totally assumed that the sound is good. You know, this is like the
Yes.
assumption.
Yeah.
Oh, we say nothing. Yeah, it works. It fills the
Yeah.
purpose, you know, and it's all good. So I'm actually very happy when I don't read anything about sound comments, you know,
Yeah.
in the reviews of our games.
I'm always trying to look for something like something else that might hint to sound. One of the things I'm also looking for is atmosphere. Like if people say, "Oh, the atmosphere was amazing," then I know I was at least part of it because the sound and the especially like environment sounds and everything like that adds to that. So because if they are missing, people will surely notice and say like, "Yeah, I don't know, I didn't feel like being there or something like that." Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I do when I'm doing the research. You know,
Mm.
I love to check how it's done in other games. So I have this process where I actually go, and since you have so many volume sliders for everything, and especially
Yeah.
in these new games like Spider-Man 2, you know, which has so many options, like in 10 other games combined, you know, and you can
Yes.
adjust everything, and then you can go and drive everything to zero and just leave music and see how
Yeah.
the music is changing depending on gameplay. Then you write this down. Oh, they're doing this. This is clever. Then I put
Hmm.
the ambience. Then I'm listening to what's happening to ambience when the combat starts. The ambience is gone. Why is the ambience gone? You know, so you start to notice these things just by
Yeah.
listening to them in isolation, and then
Yeah.
you can see how you can craft actually a great sound mix. You know, because I think a sound mixing is very important in the game. I can provide,
Absolutely.
yeah, I can work. I don't know if I'm working as a freelancer for someone and I give them sounds and music, and then later I listen to this in the game and it's all horribly implemented. You know, everything is fighting for its own space,
Yes. Yes.
and it's like no one, you know, no one thought about the sound mix. And I'm thinking about sound mix all the time. That's why my sessions here, we are using Wise as a third-party audio tool, you know, plugged into the Unreal Engine 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the Wise has some really, really good features when it comes to mix. You know, I can pretty much go into very details of the mix and decide which sounds I want more prominent and when, you know, because I can set up
Mm-hmm.
this whole ducking chain of events where certain sounds mute other sounds, you know, and it's all chained and it's being done auto magically, you know. It's
Yeah.
and as long as you have certain levels, you know, like in volume levels, and you hit these plugins the proper way, it's gonna work, you know. And I also love to put the compressor on the end, you know, with some limiters, because you never know if something is gonna sound too loud in the game. After all, it's all a live mix, you know. It all
Yeah.
depends on the 3D position in the world, so it's good to have some security in place, you know, so it doesn't break your speakers. But yeah, audio
Mm-hmm.
mixing is a big part of my job, and I think it should be a thing that people should pay more attention to. You know?
Yeah, yeah,
So
you can really hear that in older games where this wasn't a thing, this dynamic mixing, where it's like oftentimes when something happens on screen, a lot of things happen. It's just a cacophony of just sound blaring at you because, yeah, the technology just wasn't there, and the first games that did this really stood out with those kinds of sounds. And
yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean that's for me that's the proper way to do it. I still remember I'm a PlayStation fan. You know, I grew up on PlayStation. I have all of them,
yeah,
and I love to play PlayStation. So the PlayStation was designed to be played on TV. You know, and connected to TV set. And whoever was designing the first games on PS1 and 2, and they had cinematics with voices, I couldn't
hmm,
hear half of the voices, and that's the habit uh, I I developed, which is turning the subtitles on, because
mm,
I
yeah,
just can't hear what's going on. The mixes were so bad, especially in cinematics, and those are some, let's say, high profile games, you know. But
yeah, sure,
still I couldn't hear the voices, you know. The music drowned them completely. So yeah, yeah, it's just you need to know for which medium you're designing sound, and you need to know your priorities. You know, for me, voice is always the thing that is gonna have priority number one in all our games. So whenever
yeah,
there is a cutscene happening, you know, with characters talking, you know, or there is a narrator talking,
hmm,
or any voice can be heard, it needs to be clear, you know. It needs to be focused. So I have this set of spare speakers, small Avanton mix cubes, which I use, which are very limited in range, you know. And
yeah,
then I put the volume to the faintest level I can, and then I listen to the game. And if I can hear
mm,
the voice correctly, that's it. My mission is done. And I
nice,
don't think we ever
nice,
had, you know, a single comment that someone said, "Oh, I couldn't understand what they are talking." No, we just
yeah,
had compliments about the voice production and how they are all clear. And yeah, the next thing
yeah,
is probably, yeah, the important sound effects. You know, you prioritize for serious in games. Those are the enemy screams and the
hmm,
sound of shooting. You know, and then
yeah,
you have the
the
music,
hits,
which is full wide range, and you have to balance it, you know, not to clash with anything else. And yeah, once you do that properly, you've done your job, and you sit back,
yeah.
relax, and read very good reviews.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
after you release the game, what do you hope that players take away from your music when they experience it?
How well, I'm not gonna be modest here. You know, I love when fans write to me and say, "Oh, this is the great music. You are the best." You know, But I don't personally think I'm the best. I think I have so much space to improve, and I try to do it every day. But I love reading. I occasionally receive emails uh, from people who played, let's say, the TALOS principle, which is the game heavily rooted in philosophy and meaning of life, and
Mm.
people experience this game in a way that it actually changed their lives, and it made them one. There was one guy who went on studying philosophy, after playing the game. There was a person who wanted to take his own life and he didn't, which is, once you read this, you don't believe this is real, but it's real. And then you realize you've made something that is life changing, and even
Yeah.
it wasn't just me, it wasn't me at all. It was just a group of people with a shared passion, but I was part of that. I
Yeah.
helped my team change somebody else's life, and this is like the greatest feedback you can get, that you've made a change which was very positive. Yeah, I think that would be it. And I find great satisfaction, knowing that I actually helped someone, that part of me and a little thing I did managed to help someone else.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Don't be speechless, man.
No, I mean it's like
It's
I exactly I know what you mean, and I think that's also something that drives me, that I am part of a project, hopefully in the future, where we will get such reviews. I mean, it doesn't need to be that that heavy, because that's like saving someone's life is certainly top of the pops, man. So props. No, but I mean like this, especially when I think now back to games I used to play and love, and I still think about them. Like Soma, for example, was something
oh
that really
yes,
hit me hard, and I recommend it to everyone who hasn't played it to not watch a playthrough,
I
to
agree with you.
experience it themselves. Yeah, and all those ideas and all those concepts, um, when they are executed to that level, that they have this effect on you, it almost feels like magic to me, because just like with a good book or a good movie, if you're so in it that it feels real, like you just experience something real, that's something that I strive for. And yeah, that's I think that's what drives me also, and being in this medium, um, is because I was on the other end of that spectrum, or I still am. I still play games where I'm deeply affected by not just the story, of course, the story, but the whole coming together of all the arts, of all the creative people making something that really, yeah, that really impacts your life. That's a wonderful thing.
I mean, that's why we love play games.
Yeah,
That's because they convey emotions. They it's like watching. Yeah, you just said it. It's like reading a good book, watching a good movie. It makes you feel something.
mm,
And it gives you certain pleasure. And yeah, that
yeah.
this is really good and great.
Yeah, and it also somehow, in my mind at least, like connects you with the people that made the game, because if you feel something and you like really get the intention behind the game, you know that the persons that did this also had these feelings, those emotions. So, yeah, oftentimes, at least for people in bad situations, and I used to be that in my youth as well, like dealing with depression. If you then experience something where you feel like someone has the same or had the same issues like you had and overcame them, that makes you hopeful, and that like inspires you to also be better, do better, or just be open to connect with people, which oftentimes is the solution to getting better, to just, yeah, connect with other people and
I mean,
and
that's
and
always
share.
the solution. We humans, we are social beings.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't be happy if my work was hidden here in my studio and no one could hear it. It just
Yeah.
wouldn't make sense, because we are social people. We want to interact with others. I always I have this positive thinking that we all want to do good to others.
Yeah,
That we are all good.
most
I
of
mean,
us want to. Yeah.
yeah, and we want to do good to others. And being social people, of course, we are doing stuff that we want other people to hear experience, and later comment, and through that interaction, you can get honest feedback. You can improve yourselves. You can go the ways you perhaps haven't thought of going before. Try new stuff, and keeping this open discussion, conversation, and keeping yourself connected to others is vital. Especially when you mentioned, the depression is something that happens these days. The world is in turmoil. It's complicated. It was complicated when I was young. It's complicated now. It's probably going to be complicated in the future. But if we can talk about it, then we can deal with it.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. No, that's
yeah.
It's
I mean,
it's a good
we agree
closing
on
word,
this.
I think.
Yeah.
I just think that's a good way of closing this episode. So maybe the only thing left is if you have any shout outs or any advice for people, anything you want to say to round this off, just like the end credits of a movie.
I just always round this off with the same thing, invest in yourself. That's the best investment you can make, and invest in your knowledge, because no one can take the knowledge from you except Alzheimer. But no one can take the knowledge from you, and invest in yourself and be the best version of yourself that you can be, and it's going to pay off. And thank you, Ben, for inviting me to Field and Foley, and cheers and big shout to all your listeners.
Thank you. Thank you. Looking for more audio-related podcasts to listen to? We're part of the Audio Podcast Alliance, featuring a hand-picked selection of the very best podcasts about sound. Be sure to hear the latest episodes from our friends in the community at audiopodcast.org. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting on patreon.com/fieldandfoley or ko-fi.com/fieldandfoley, where you gain early access to episodes in lossless format and can submit questions for our guests. Thank you for listening.